Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973.
10 minutes for 8 is the time, notwithstanding the importance and severity of the sentencing of the so-called rapist former police officer. Let's come back to the story that is leading the news agenda, which is the horror and terror for so many people that's played out, of course, in the Turkey and Syrian border. And even as we speak, rescue teams are working to try and pull out the survivors and, of course, eventually try and rehouse the many, many thousands who've been left homeless. Now, it would appear it is a truly global effort. The Daily Mirror reporting EU officials have mobilised teams already. Israel is dispatching teams. Germany sending generators, tents and blankets. The Czech Republic sending 68 rescuers. Greece sending 21 rescuers, 2 rescue dogs and other experts. So let's turn to Conservative MP and Minister of State for Development and Africa, Andrew Mitchell, to join me to explain a little bit more what's coming from the UK side. Thanks for coming on, Minister. What is Britain or United Kingdom trying to put in place, and has the kit left yet? Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nick. As soon as this dreadful tragedy struck Turkey, we talked to the Turkish authorities to find out what we could do to help and what would be most important, because the first 72 hours are when you can have the most effect. And as a result of that, a plane will be leaving, I think, within the next hour or so from Birmingham, taking 76 UK search and rescue specialists and 4 search dogs to Turkey. That is what the Turkish authorities most need, and British expertise will be going there and should be on the ground with effect during daylight hours today. We're also sending an emergency medical team to make an assessment on the ground. One of the things we learnt, Nick, from the awful tragedy in Haiti was the importance of coordination. Turkey is a highly effective government, and we need to fit in with exactly what they want, and that's what we're doing.
So is our aid being focused, Minister, to Turkey and Syria, or just to Turkey and Syria in the next wave? What's the thinking on that?
Sadly, they are very different circumstances. Our thinking is to get the right expertise into Turkey to help the Turkish effort, and that's what we're doing as far as Turkey is concerned. As far as Syria is concerned, northern Syria is extensively ungoverned space. There's only one crossing from the Turkish border into Syria that's open at the moment, where we hope the UN may be able to negotiate additional openings. And what we're doing there is supporting the White Helmets, which Britain has supported for some years. They were a civil defence group during the warfare in Syria, but they are the right people on the ground to support now. Britain has supported them and will continue to do so.
Yours has been a tireless voice for the need for foreign aid and development budget. Indeed, you and I have debated it on a number of occasions. Shocking stories such as these, what does it do to you and the argument you're trying to put forward, Minister?
Well, the British public have always been strongly supportive of these sort of humanitarian emergency actions. Britain has always been amongst the first people to respond to these crises and get there to help. I think it helps to underline the argument for international development, for Britain's role across the international system. And I know that people throughout our country will be anxiously watching what is happening, will expect Britain, quite rightly, to be there in the forefront of the fight to save lives, and that's what we'll be doing. The first 72 hours, as I say, are absolutely critical, and I hope this very expert and experienced British team with their dogs will be rescuing people in daylight hours today in Turkey.
What do we understand about the circumstances on the ground, Minister?
Well, they are as terrible as the pictures we're seeing on our television screens emphasise. I know Gaziantep because I was there a couple of years ago with Claire Short, actually, looking at the Syria relief operation. It's a very densely populated area with a lot of high-rise buildings, which will have been caught in the centre of this dreadful emergency. And a lot of people will be caught and trapped underneath the wreckage. There will be an acute need for shelter, warmth, medicine, food and healthcare, and a coordinated effort from the international community will undoubtedly save lives at this terrible time for the people there.
Last couple of conversations to have. There is a report in the front page of one of the newspapers today, the Daily Mail, under the headline Defenceless, with a budget, as you'll be aware, Minister, just around the corner, a suggestion that there will be no extra funding for the UK's armed forces despite the war in Ukraine, noting you can only spend £1 once. Should it be spent on defence or international aid and development?
Well, both. We are the biggest spender within NATO outside of America, the biggest spender in Europe. We're seeing the benefits of Britain's defence expertise deployed in this dreadful crisis in Ukraine. And we spend 2%, and that's amongst the highest in NATO, and we must continue to do that. But the answer to your question, Nick, is both.
Lastly, Minister, I'm currently addressing you as Minister. If one newspaper is to be believed, I could soon be addressing you as Chairman, as in Chairman of the Conservative Party. Do you have a word on that, Mr Mitchell?
Well, it's way above my pay grade, Nick. It's a matter for the Prime Minister, but I am going to spend today and the next weeks focused very directly, I hope, on the crisis in Turkey and what Britain, with its humanitarian expertise, can do to help.
Allow me one last effort. You would be happy to serve, though, if called upon.
Well, I'm certainly not expecting to be called upon to do that, but one should always try to do what the Prime Minister wants you to do.
Always grateful for your time. Thank you, Andrew. Andrew Mitchell, Minister of State for Development and Africa, talking about the coordination of the UK's part of that response. We will, of course, keep an eye on that, possibly even return to that conversation. But it is a lot of you wanting to call in at 4 minutes before 8 on the so-called rapist police officer facing sentencing today. Almost, well, I would say it will be a life term. The key will be how many years he has